This story starts where a lot of stories starts, a champion. Although this champion wasn't a hero, this champion was far from it. He was a man who's done horrible things, but he did it all in the name of his country. His name was Barou. As Barou was traveling with his men, they would go across a rebel base. The rebel base was completely fortified. And well, it would be hard to get inside. You see, in this world, there is one government that unites humanity, the church. Long ago, there was many different kingdoms, but the church overthrew them all. But now there are rebels in the civil war that want to limit the church's power. Barou was the church's top commander, and he was their most brutal one, and he would be called to do the dirty work no one else would want to. As his forces surrounded the base, his men would ask what to do, as he had a plan. As he went to one of the hostages of war, as he went down to the prisoner, he said, "Sir, do you want to be free?"
Would look at Barou confused. Free? Why would he just free him? He was known as one of the most ruthless commanders that the army had. The fact that he would just let one of his prisoners go didn't make any sense. So he looked and said, "What's the catch? You have to try to negotiate them surrendering." As he said, "I'll never do that." As then he says, "I looked at my files. Seems you had kids. It would be a shame if you never saw them again," Barou would say. As the old Barou would be disgusted with this behavior, but now his heart has become cold and rotten, as he's able to do whatever it takes. As Barou would then look at the man and say, "Well, if you want to, you're gonna have to be let go." As then he said, "Fine, I'll try to talk him into surrendering, but I know they won't go for it." As then Barou and his army surrounding the base would then let the hostage in. As the walls opened and let him in, suddenly an explosion would be heard as Barou strapped an explosive device to the hostage. As Barou's men charged in, no one was spared. Everyone was slaughtered and made an example of. As Barou would walk in and look at the carnage, he would look at everything around him burning down, as not a single word was uttered, and no cheers were met. The army didn't like Barou. He was used by the military and by the government to do the dirty work that no one else wanted to do. Everyone despised him, even their own men. He only ruled by fear. As he watched everything around him burn, he would see a bird fly towards him.
Government often used birds for messengers. However, these birds were special. They had magic by the Pope themselves. As the crow would land on Barou's shoulder, it would begin to talk. "Dear Barou, we hear of a rebel plot to end your life." Barou would laugh and say, "The rebels have tried to take me over and over. If they think they can, let them try." As in the crow would say, "Huh, amusing, but no. The Pope demands that you hide out for a few weeks before he can discover the plot." Barou would say, "I do not want to hide. I want to continue my campaign to crush the rebels." The crow would say, "That's an order." The one person Barou couldn't deny, Pope, even though he didn't really care about the Pope. He didn't really care about anything else other than victory. However, Barou would simply nod. As he would say, "So, where am I gonna be?" "In a noble's house," the crow would say. "You're joking. Nobility hates me." "Huh, not all of them." As the crow flew away, Barou would simply sit down and wait. As then he saw something, a car. Cars were extremely rare, and they were powered by steam. Only the most rich and powerful could have a car. As the car drove in, the door opened. As a man named Alfred was driving. He was a noble. As Barou walked in and said, "You look pretty fancy for a butler." "I'm not the butler, I like to drive." "A noble that does his own work. Huh. How surprising." As Barou sat next to him, Alfred would begin to drive him to his home, as they would make small talk. Strange, Barou was used to no one wanted to talk to him. No one wanted to associate with him. After all, he was known as the war criminal, and the one who was used to get the job done, not some friend. As Barou says, "Why are you so interested in talking to me?" "I like you, Barou. I heard about your missions, and I have a connection with you." This shocked Barou, as Barou would listen to Alfred, as there was something about him. Usually, Barou didn't like talking to people. After all, he liked to keep things to himself, but Alfred was different. He had a warm way about him, like he had a warm and kind soul. Borrow hadn't seen anything like that in years. As Borrow went to Alfred's house, he was shocked as he didn't see any butlers or maids or anything, but the house was just big and empty. Borrow would say, "You maintain this thing by yourself?" "No, I call in a couple people every week or two. Why not have them work here all the time? Because I don't like being around people." This shocked Borrow. He was so talkative and interested in him, but he doesn't like people? How does that make any sense? Borrow would then look at Alfred and say, "What do you want?" As Alfred would say, "Straight to the point, are we?" "Your detective skills are amazing." Borrow would say, "Is this some sort of trap?" No. "I wanted to say thank you for saving me, Borrow." Borrow would say, "What are you talking about? You may not remember this, but I was 15 and, well, you were 20. You had just started your job in the army." As in a flashback would concur. As Alfred was with his guards, suddenly they would all be shot down by a sniper. As Alfred fell to the floor, as he would cry and shake in fear, suddenly the sniper would fall to the ground, no longer with us. As Borrow would jump down and throw down more bodies. "They're taken care of." "Nobility, huh? You can go now." As in Borrow left, Alfred would say, "Wait, I have to thank you. Please take my..." "I don't want your money. I don't want anything anymore," Borrow would say as he left. Alfred would say, "I'd never forgotten that. And I wanted to say thank you and ask you for a favor. And, well, I know you saved my life and I don't deserve to ask you for something," but Borrow would say, "Stop. You deserve to ask for anything you want. You're your own man." As Borrow would actually smirk. As Borrow would slowly walk up to him and say, "You can ask me whatever you want. Now, what is it?" Alfred would say, "Can you teach me how to defend myself? I don't want to rely on others. I had elite guards that night, but they did nothing. But you did all that by yourself. Teach me how to be strong." Borrow would say, "I will, but it won't be easy. And your bones might break. How long do we have?" Alfred would say, "You're going to be with me for 3 weeks. I'll give you a week's lesson." "Why only a week lesson?" Alfred would say, "Because the other 2 weeks you'll be in the hospital." Borrow would then smirk. As then, Borrow and Alfred began to train. As Borrow would walk outside and say, "Hit me, Alfred." As Alfred would try to hit him, Borrow would dodge every attack swung at him. As then he would throw Alfred a sword. As Alfred would say, "What do you want me to do with this?" "Use the sword. I'll use my fist." "But I could..." "Trust me, I'll be fine." As Alfred swung his sword, Borrow would punch him in the gut. And each time he swung and missed, Borrow would punch him. As he punched him again and again and again. But each time, Alfred got a little bit faster. Each time, the pain motivated him to do more. But eventually, Borrow would say, "All right, that's enough." "You all right?" Alfred would cough up a bit of blood and say, "Yeah, I'm fine." As Borrow and Alfred would go into the house. As Alfred would sleep in a separate bed, Borrow would look right next to him. The bed had a picture of him and some woman. It seems like his wife, but he didn't really see her around. As the next day, Borrow would walk up to Alfred and say, "Hey, when is your wife gonna be home?" Alfred would sigh and say, "What are you talking about?" "The picture." As then Alfred said, "She's no longer with us." Borrow would say, "I'm sorry." As then Alfred would say, "I get the opinion that you're not like everyone else. Could you keep a secret?" Borrow would then go, "Is it against our nation?" "Well, yes and no." Go on and tell me now," Borrow would say, as then Alfred would start to tell Borrow something. Alfred would tell him about what happened to his wife. As 2 years after they were married, her wife was curious why Alfred never made any advancement towards her. As Alfred set her down and began to talk to her, as he looked into her eyes and said, "I'm gay," which was a big no-no in this society. In Borrow's world, the church controls everything, and being gay was not really something to be proud of. As she cried and ran in and grabbed a knife, and well, Alfred would try to talk her out of it, but he couldn't, as she ended her existence. As we cut back to present day,
Alfred would start to cry and say, I'm a freak. Because of me, she's... As in, Borrow would hug him and say, you're not a freak. As in, Alfred hugged back and said, I thought you were going to arrest me. Borrow would say, I should. The old me would have, but just one day with you made me feel something special. As Alfred and Borrow looked into each other's eyes. And then they kissed. Welcome. And this was my first ever unique story. And let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I want this to become a full-on movie, and I'd love for this to be a live-action movie or even a cartoon, but I can't really animate. I've gotten into a little bit, but I'm just not that good at it. So if any of you are animators or anything, or if any of you know any companies or movie productions, let them know this exists, and I'm down to talk about it. But yeah, this was a really great story. I wrote this story, actually. I wrote this story a while ago, back when I was in high school, and it was way darker. Imagine this, but 10 times darker. So yeah, each episode I do is a cleaner version of that, because sometimes it's just dark for the sake of being dark. I also have to clean it up a bit for audience sake. But yeah, I do really think that this series will go good, and I have lots of battles and lots of stuff planned. Now, it's kind of like a medieval and Napoleonic technologies combined. Medieval, Napoleonic, and even some futuristic steam technology with magic in this world. Also, there's some rebels, there's monsters, there's all kinds of things. But this story is about Borrow and him getting his revenge. And you just saw the first episode. Now, the second episode, things are going to get real. And he's going to come looking for revenge. Everything is going to snap into place during the second episode. I promise you that. This episode is more of a build-in episode, getting you to know the characters, getting you to know what position they're in, and getting you to know how they feel. Borrow is supposed to be a person who used to be kind, loving, but slowly his heart has gone dark due to battle and brutality, and now he's trying to find his humanity again in this cruel, dark world. That is the story of Borrow. And Alfred is the man who helps him do that. And I cannot spoil it too much, but I got to say, I think this was a great story. I can't wait for you all to watch it. I can't wait for you all to share it. But since this isn't a what if, I need you all to share this with as many people as possible. Because since it's not a what if, it's not gonna shoot out with as many people. Not nearly as many people are gonna see this pop up on their For You page. So it's up to you to make up the difference. It's up to you to share it. So I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with all your friends. I love you so much. Thank you for being here for me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being a fan. It means the world to me. And if you don't think anyone loves you, you're wrong, because I love you. Peace out.